It goes without saying that the clever cylinder amazed Ivan. The word nurse was replaced by the words call the doctor. Said Ivan, not knowing how to proceed further with this cylinder. But here he happened to be lucky. Ivan pressed the button a second time at the word attendant. The cylinder rang quietly in response, stopped, the light went out, and a plump, sympathetic woman in a clean white coat came into the room and said to Ivan, "Good morning." Ivan did not reply, considering such a greeting inappropriate under the circumstances. Indeed, they lock up a healthy man in a clinic, and pretend that that is how it ought to be. The woman meanwhile, without losing her good-natured expression, brought the blinds up with one push of a button, and sun flooded the room through a light and wide mesh grille which reached right to the floor. Beyond the grille a balcony came into view, beyond that the bank of a meandering river, and on its other bank a cheerful pine wood. "Time for our bath," the woman invited, and under her hands the inner wall parted, revealing behind it a bathroom and splendidly equipped toilet. Ivan, though he had resolved not to talk to the woman, could not help himself and, on seeing the water gush into the tub in a wide stream from the gleaming faucet, said ironically, "Looky there. Just like the Metropole." "Oh, no," the woman answered proudly, "much better. There is no such equipment even anywhere abroad. Scientists and doctors come especially to study our clinic. We have foreign tourists every day." At the words foreign tourists, Ivan at once remembered yesterday's consultant. Ivan darkened, looked sullen, and said, "Foreign tourists, how you all adore foreign tourists. But among them, incidentally, you come across all sorts. I, for instance, met one yesterday, quite something." And he almost started telling about Pontius Pilate, but restrained himself, realizing that the woman had no use for these stories, that in any case she could not help him. The washed Ivan Nikolaevich was straightway issued decidedly everything a man needs after a bath: an ironed shirt, drawers, socks. And not only that, opening the door of a cupboard, the woman pointed inside and asked, "What would you like to put on, a dressing gown or some nice pajamas?" Attached to his new dwelling by force, Ivan almost clasped his hands at the woman's casualness and silently pointed his finger at the crimson flannel pajamas. After this, Ivan Nikolaevich was led down the empty and noiseless corridor and brought to an examining room of huge dimensions. Ivan, having decided to take an ironic attitude towards everything to be found in this wondrously equipped building, at once mentally christened this room the industrial kitchen. And with good reason. Here stood cabinets and glass cases with gleaming nickel-plated instruments. There were chairs of extraordinarily complex construction, some pot-bellied lamps with shiny shades, a myriad of files, Bunsen burners, electric cords and appliances quite unknown to anyone. In the examining room Ivan was taken over by 3 persons, 2 women and a man, all in white. First, they led Ivan to a corner, to a little table, with the obvious purpose of getting something or other out of him. Ivan began to ponder the situation. 3 ways stood before him. The first was extremely tempting, to hurl himself at all these lamps and sophisticated little things, make the devil's own wreck of them, and thereby express his protest at being detained for nothing. But today's Ivan already differed significantly from the Ivan of yesterday, and this first way appeared dubious to him. For all he knew, the thought might get rooted in them that he was a violent madman. Therefore Ivan rejected the first way. There was a second, immediately to begin his account of the consultant and Pontius Pilate. However, yesterday's experience showed that this story either was not believed or was taken somehow perversely. Therefore Ivan renounced this second way as well, deciding to choose the third way, withdrawal into proud silence. He did not succeed in realizing it fully, and had willy-nilly to answer, though charily and glumly, a whole series of questions. Thus they got out of Ivan decidedly everything about his past life, down to when and how he had fallen ill with scarlet fever 15 years ago. A whole page having been covered with writing about Ivan, it was turned over, and the woman in white went on to questions about Ivan's relatives. Some sort of humdrum started, who died when and why, and whether he drank or had venereal disease, and more of the same. In conclusion he was asked to tell about yesterday's events at the Patriarch's ponds, but they did not pester him too much, and were not surprised at the information about Pontius Pilate. Here the woman yielded Ivan up to the man, who went to work on him differently and no longer asked any questions. He took the temperature of Ivan's body, counted his pulse, looked in Ivan's eyes, directing some sort of lamp into them. Then the second woman came to the man's assistance, and they pricked Ivan in the back with something, but not painfully, drew some signs on the skin of his chest with the handle of a little hammer, tapped his knees with the hammer, which made Ivan's legs jump, pricked his finger and took his blood, pricked him inside his bent elbow, put some rubber bracelets on his arms. Ivan just smiled bitterly to himself and reflected on how stupidly and strangely it had all happened. Just think. He had wanted to warn them all of the danger threatening from the unknown consultant, had intended to catch him, and all he had achieved was to wind up in some mysterious room, telling all sorts of hogwash about Uncle Fyodor, who had done some hard drinking in Vologda. Insufferably stupid. Finally Ivan was released. He was escorted back to his room, where he was given a cup of coffee, 2 soft-boiled eggs and white bread with butter.